Welcome back to our humble podcast. I'm your host, GT. I have with me my amazing co-host, Christina. How's it going?
It's going great, actually.
Yeah?
Thanks for asking.
Did you try the seaweed?
Nope.
No. She's not for the seaweed. We're back with another interview, and we have a really exciting conversation. Joy brings light. It's a very exciting to have you here, and I think we're gonna have a great conversation. Andrea Joy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. So glad to be here. So excited to talk to y'all and get into it a little bit.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so for every show, I have an icebreaker question.
Okay.
And this one just came to me on the way over here.
All right, bet. Give it to me.
I know you work in the DEI space.
Yeah.
What is that for?
A
People like me?
DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
Yeah. Ultimately, I say you have a level of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility together. If they're utilized at the same time well, it creates a level of belonging, right? Which is more so an emotional state of how you feel connected and interconnected. I'm all about building teams and building communities. Right? It's like that idea of teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
I try to say, how can we turn our realities into dreams?
Turn our realities into dreams.
Yeah.
Okay. That's different. Nice. So one thing that Christina likes to highlight is I do a really bad job of getting the backstory. So let's get to know you. You're not originally from Omaha, right?
I am not. I moved here just under 2 years ago from just outside of Atlanta. And I came up here to make some history and to create change and to activate in new ways. I came up to become a senior executive at an opera company here, and their first executive of color in the company's history in over 65 years.
Wow.
And I became one of about 4 senior executives that were Black in opera in the whole country, talking about how do we make the classical arts make the classical arts today, right? Where there's more voices and more stories being instilled in that, because the power of creativity is everything, is absolutely everything.
Absolutely. That's amazing. One of 4 Black executives.
Yeah. It's been
That's
really,
huge.
it's been a really wild ride. And I think, because there are so few, it was that space of really like wanting to strongly advocate for a high level of belonging for the artist, for the audiences, for the creatives just behind the scenes that may be putting things together. And I've just been very blessed and fortunate that put me I think in a certain type of spotlight, because there just weren't a lot of me, right? And in that kind of trying to take that energy and fuel that into my own multidisciplinary consulting firm.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what Joy Brings Light is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the Joy Brings Light in the second half of the interview. Just a little teaser for those people watching on TV. And I'm not sure if I unplugged or actually communicated this to you. This is going to air over 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So the first half is going to air actually this Sunday, and then next Sunday will be the second half of the interview.
All right.
So
well,
you guys got to
excited.
tune in next week to hear about what Joy Brings Light actually is.
That's right. We'll make it tantalizing, so make sure you come back.
Nice. All right, so let's talk about opera. So are you an opera singer?
I am. That is one of my original love spaces. I've been in the sound space and the music space for a long time. I went to Oberlin Conservatory for my undergraduate space in vocal performance and opera. And then I have a master's in music from the University of Kentucky. Wow. I was like legitimately in that thing where I was also an all-tech scholar while I was there. And then went out singing a little bit. And I just had this space of, I think sometimes the reality of what something is can be different from the outside. And a lot of times people see opera singers, things like that, but you're only performing this much of the time. The rest of the time, there's a lot of other stuff that's going on. And I I adore the beauty of what that art form brings, and it's just so multifaceted. So I feel like that's where it really just connected with me, is that how many different things you're actually doing at once, right? Because you have the linguistic side of the different languages that you're going through, which primarily is Italian, German, French, and then probably English, in that space. But I have to say, just real quick, I'm a huge advocate for us creating an American Renaissance in opera and creating more English-based operas and more operas that are telling American stories, right? Nice. So that means the people of this land who have come through this land, because there's often not enough of that, right? Yeah. And so I think like we could just start something amazing just by telling more stories of people who are here, right? Who have been here, right? Our voices matter, our histories matter. And what an awesome way to put it together in an art form like opera, which is the plural of opus, right? Which is a work. And so it's the space of many works. Right? Like and a lot of times people, it's so funny. Most people don't talk about it like this. You know, it's just hilarious, but it literally means the space of many works. And it's the space where almost all the creatives come together to tell a story. And so then you have the question, what is opera really, right? And it's really, to me, a combination of multiple artists and multiple creatives coming together to tell a singular story. And then here's where I say, does that have to include singing? Does that have to include music? It becomes this very big question, and I don't feel like any of us are here to determine yes or no to that question personally. And it's exciting though, because that means you have all these interesting combinations that can come together. Because if you go to an opera, just most operas, you're going to see singing, you're going to see dancing, you're going to see set design, you're going to see the symphony, right? So like, you're going to see lighting design that's happening. You're going to see costuming there. You're going to see hair and makeup that's there, right? And that's just some of what you see.
There's so much more that goes on behind the
scenes. Think about it. You don't see the composer. You don't see the librettist, right? But somebody had to put this stuff together. And a lot of times there is a historical aspect that comes to it. You heard me saying about the American Renaissance and what that could look like of our story. So that means like you have historians that are looking in the past, and you have people who right now are trying to preserve history to say, well, what are the stories that we need to tell? And I think rather quickly, for me, it becomes very like obvious how exciting the space could be if it wanted to be.
Okay. I love it.
Yeah.
So inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I truly do. And it's also important to note that there are more voices that could still be heard and seen in the forefront and in the background, having a hand in the creation of what does opera look like and what does the classical arts look like, right? I'm someone who is very focused on the now, right? And saying, how do we get into it right now? How do we shape and change it right now? What does that look like right now? What does my present experience look like, right? And I'm very focused on sustainability. So one of the things that I've been fortunate enough to get some national attention for is for strategy. And so I'm always trying to say, how do we implement something that's also sustainable, that's going to last over a period of time? And again, I think that comes back to my original love space, and you're thinking about something like opera. We're still performing and listening to things that are hundreds of years old, right? So I've just in general always been someone who's like focused on sustainability of like, what does history look like in terms of the past, and what does history look like in terms of the future when you're thinking about it in the present?
That's good.
Right? Like, and so being in these three spaces, separately and together, kind of all at once, all the time, as we naturally are, whether we talk about it or not.
That's huge. And you have to be intentional in that. Planning for the future.
Well, I mean, you don't have to be intentional. I mean, it works out better for you if you are intentional. Right? Because,
well, to make sure the story that you want to be solidified. There's got to be some preparation or intentionality to it. But you're right. Whatever we do becomes history.
Yes.
Whether it's intentional or not.
Oh, that just happened back there.
Nice. So the only opera I've ever been to was the Malcolm X one that you invited us to. Thank you again for that. That was huge.
100%.
It was a great opportunity for everybody in the collective and for us together to be able to experience that. So I work in production, and that was one thing that I recognized is how many different elements were involved in the set. You got lights, not only the lights on the performers, but also the texture lights and the projection that just kind of created the atmosphere, and then the different set pieces and having the moving set pieces and all of that. Like it was amazing.
There's so many people involved.
Right.
There are so many people involved, and people are prepping things sometimes for years. I mean, it is actually very, very intense. And in that, that's just what I was speaking to about the American Renaissance of opera, right? Of like telling a story about Malcolm X, who is in some ways a real American hero, you know? You don't have to look for Marvel to find really interesting and cool things that people have done. Just pick up a book, watch a vlog, like listen to a podcast. Like there's so many interesting people who have lived that I think it's important that as we're saying like, where are we and where do we want to go, that we really do honor. We honor what has come before us.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I just think it really matters, right? And then in this, Malcolm X, the opera coming, X, the Life and Times of Malcolm X coming was one of the reasons that I came to Omaha. You know, I think of myself as an artivist, right? Which is an arts activist. I use arts and creativity as one of my forms of activism. And so it's in that space we were talking about intentionality. And I said, well, you don't really have to be, but like, it's better if you are, right? It's saying, well, what are you working to create with whatever it is that you're doing? And like I am also a creative producer and director. And when I run like creative teams, I like to be very open, very free. Anybody can speak. You can say something. Just because you're not contracted for this doesn't mean you have to just sit in silence if you have an opinion on something. I want it, please. And in that, I like to say, you know, you can make choices. I want there to be a lot of freedom. I need you to know why you're making the choices that you make. So if I ask you, well, why did you do that? Or why do you think this? Or, you know, what's the purpose of you bringing this? You need to have an answer, right? Not having an answer is the quickest way to be like, yeah, we should maybe do something else. Or like, thank you, right? Like, know why you're doing what you're doing, not so that you can control the outcome. So at least you have an impact on the outcome in some form or fashion. And I wanted to come to Omaha because this is the birthplace of Malcolm X, right? Like this is a hotbed for civil rights.
Yeah.
And it used to be a big space in the country, and it's in the heart of the country, right? And you know,
Heartland.
We are in the heartland, right?
Yeah.
And I know that if you really want to create change in someone's life, in all of our lives, you know, it really starts is not in your actions. It's right here. It's really in your heart. Do you really believe what you say you believe? It'll show itself.
That's good. So, trying to decide if you want to continue this conversation. I still, like, there's so much more to Andrea Joy in your history.
I know, trying to fit it into well, not even a whole hour. I was like, what are we gonna do?
Right. So
I'm pretty cool, I will admit.
Pretty fly. I gotta say, and I gotta give you your roses, what they say, right? I give you your roses. You were a big inspiration for us even starting this podcast. Because as we started building a relationship, I started getting to know you. I realized that you had so many talents that I didn't know about. So I just got the idea to build this platform so we can have these conversations and really get to know you, what you do, and why.
Yeah.
Right. So let's.
Thank you.
I do have another question before we change subject. So Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, is there a reason that you gravitate towards Malcolm X over like telling that story of Martin Luther King?
I wouldn't say one over the other. I think they're both really prolific. I think it's important to note that you just heard me say I'm from just outside of Atlanta, where Martin Luther King gets lots of flowers, you know, 100%. And I would say it actually was surprising to me that there isn't more of an embrace of Malcolm X here, right? But I think they're just different. I don't think one is better than the other. I think what's important to note about both of them is that they tried. They got out here and they started getting into it. And when
Yeah.
you start getting into it, and you are truly passionate about what it is that you say you're about, particularly if you're trying to create change and community level change, people get behind you. Right? People will support you. And I think, that matters for both of them. And I think it's also in that space of one over the other that it's really important to note how they both met their end. Right? Like,
Absolutely.
there is no right way that will have like a for sure outcome. Right? When you are speaking up for change and you are speaking up for the future and the changing of certain levels and dynamics, it's not always full of roses and lollipops, right? They both ended the same way, right? It can be a dangerous game when you're talking to people about how do you create new futures. But that is, I think, it's one of those things you have to go into it with your eyes wide open as much as possible to say that there is no right way. So I just got to do it my way. I got to do it in whatever way feels good to me. And I got a role in that because at the end of the day, I have to answer.
Right. I think that's really uplifting. That's not the word I'm trying to say, but empowering. Sorry, it's really empowering people to live how they feel convicted to live and to speak up for things that are important to them. That's great. So let's talk about some of the other creative things that you're into. We got opera.
Yeah, so there's opera, but in that, like you heard me saying, it's very multifaceted. I think of myself as a Renaissance person. So I have a musical background. You heard me say creative direction and production. You heard me also mention strategy. I do like development and trainings on how do we have a higher level of cohesion. In that, I also am a public speaker. I do a lot of inspirational and motivational speaking and kind of thought leadership in how do we create whatever it is that we want to create in real time is the easiest way to say that. And how do we live a life that's full of joy, right? I think we're very much meant to live lives that are full of joy.
Absolutely.
But I would say kind of above all of the things that I do, I'm a host and an MC. I have some events coming up this weekend, but the thing is, I have 3 or 4 things before this will air.
Oh, wow. Of course. Darn it, missed it.
And in that though, my goal is to be a friend to all as best that I can. I like to say, I cannot guarantee I can make your day better, but I will do what I can not to make it worse.
Nice.
I will do what I can, right?
Doesn't that seem so simple?
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah, people are complex. Oh yeah, I'm also a human resources specialist, and in that I care a lot about people, and people are easy and difficult at the exact same time because everyone's so different, right? There's just so many identities that everybody holds that trying to have spaces that feel very safe, that feel free, is not maybe as simple as it sounds on surface, and yet I think it is very, very plausible and possible. And I'm also a visual artist, and in that space of you hearing me saying creative director and producer,
Visual aspect to that.
Well, there's the aspect of like, I like to say I can be basically anybody on the team. I just can't be everybody on the
Absolutely.
team, right?
Yeah.
So like whatever I need to get into, I will get into. You need me to get this camera real quick. You need me to write out like to run a show. Like what's the budget for it? You need me to get out here and recruit the creatives. What you need me to come up with the concept for it before it even starts. Oh, I need to dress everybody. Do I need to do somebody's hair? Oh, I need to do makeup real fast. Like I'm someone who I ain't never scared That's really what it comes to, right?
Yeah.
Is I don't roll in fear, right? I do not roll in fear. I know that God's got my back and it's all going to be all right. And I don't even have to try to be perfect. I only have to try to show up as best as I can today, progress over perfection all the time. And that like keeps me in this space where I am agile, right? It keeps me in the space where like you heard me saying, be a friend. So if somebody asks for my help, I do what I can to help, right? I try to jump in. I naturally see gaps, right? In one of the spaces that I'm in, and we might talk about this more next time, is organizational development. Where are the gaps? And trying to see where those are. And all of that plays into who I am as a person, not just what I do. I am
Comes from the heart.
right. Oh yeah, it really does come from the heart, right? Like my care and passion for people, living enjoyable and worthwhile lives comes from the heart for real. One, because I want to live that way. And I think we all deserve to live that way, right?
Yeah.
And what is a little bit probably maybe a little bit different about me is that like our conversation A and our conversation B probably won't be drastically different. Why? Because I have been very blessed and I have made a lot of intentional decisions to align my internal and my external.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
So I do work that I am passionate about doing that I would almost do anyway. And I'm fortunate enough to have the opportunity to choose what projects that I'm working on and like how I'm entertaining them and working throughout them, right? So like I'm someone who's passionate about people, passionate about community, passionate about diversity, equity, inclusion, passionate about people feeling like they belong, passionate about creativity. So a lot of the things I do in life are going to align behind that because that's really who I am.
Love it.
Yeah, I just want everybody to be, I want everybody to be happy, you know, but joyful. I really stay away from like that because happy comes off like, like, you know, just like this, like just very over the top or even like toxic positivity, right? Like where it's just, you're taking it too far. I really lean into, if I cast my cares upon the Lord, it's all taken care of. Right? So like I don't have to feel overly bogged down by stuff. So it keeps a level and a lightness of contentment and gratitude in place all the time. Right? And I do take on this mindset, and maybe it's just like I'm a girl from the South who's like grown up in church. I don't know. But it's that space of like, if God never does another thing for me, He's already done enough.
Didn't somebody say that in one of our interviews already? T?
I think it was.
Yeah, that's
similar.
huge.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
so good.
so like I like you asked me how I was doing today. Blessed and highly favored,
Amen.
right? And that was when the camera was off, right?
Right.
Like that's really how I actively work, right? To see, and what I see impacts how I feel, right? And so like in that, I look for the things to be grateful about, and I focus my attention on the things that I want to be grateful about and enjoy being grateful about. And I intentionally create a culture of gratitude throughout my day. And I think that gratitude is like a buoy in the water. It creates a sense of buoyancy as you are on this timeline of life.
Yeah.
It's not that you never go down. It just helps.
Water. I love it.
It just helps you, you know, keep going and keep bobbing up, right?
Yeah. When we come back, we're gonna hit some on that water.
Okay.
That's something that's been real heavy on my heart, and it's actually something that we're going into church in July.
Yeah.
Super excited for that. Before we end this episode, can you let people know how they can get in contact with you?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram at Joy Brings Light. You can check out my website at joybringslight.com. You can email me at joybringslight@gmail.com. You see how I put it all together?
Light. Yeah, I love it.
Joy brings light, right? So that you can step into your light. I like to say you step into your joy and you step into your light. Shine bright, bright, bright.
Like a diamond?
Like a diamond. Or a
I don't
Ruby.
know.
Or there's
Yeah,
so many other gems as well.
Right.
I'm weird when it comes to diamonds. I got to be real honest with you. But like I'm like there's so many other
Mm.
amazing jewels that are here and gems and
Yeah.
stones that are here, and we put so much attention on this one, and it impacts people for real, for real. But yeah,
Let's go.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Our Humble Podcast. We'll be back. For those listening to the podcast, you know, it's just going to be a quick blurb, and we might even have a commercial in there for you. Maybe not.
Working on it.
We're working on it. But thank you for tuning in to Our Humble Podcast, and we'll be back. All right, we are back. Welcome to Our Humble Podcast. Your host, GT. I got next to me the most amazing co-host in the world.
It's your only co-host.
Hey, I've had at least 2 other co-hosts, Humble King Show. So,
Oh, you better take that love.
right?
You better take that love.
And with us,
Good.
we also have not just the light that is shining on us in this studio, but we have the light that is in our presence. That is Joy Brings Light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrea Joy.
Hi, I'm Andrea Joy. So happy to be with y'all and to keep getting into it.
Yeah, I love it. When we left the last segment, you had mentioned water, and literally in the parking lot pulling up, I was thinking about the snacks that I got today. Every episode, we ask the guest, what's your favorite snack? What's your favorite drink? And your answer was seaweed.
Girl. We're driving back from Minnesota and I was dog tired, like, oh my goodness. And we had he's like, oh, we need to talk. I was like, okay, getting into it. And I'm like, you know, everyone has said different things, but you are the only person who came even remotely close to seaweed. Like, we've
Anything
had
healthy.
chips.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what's your favorite drink? And you're like, water. I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, I'm not eating none of that. Like,
I asked JC, he said chicken.
Yeah.
So we went and got wings after that episode.
Shut up. Oh, I wish I would have knew full course meals were here.
she said,
I might have turned up a little bit,
she
you
said,
know.
we really like seaweed.
I
And
do.
I said, what?
I like crab legs and a seafood boil, you know what I'm saying? Like
That's awesome. So many different areas, at least in my head, I see all these dots getting connected. But what I was getting to is with the seaweed, it's not something typically either of us would eat. What I am trying to be intentional in, and I am kind of being forced to, is being flexible and flowing. And I feel like that's a huge representation of water.
Yeah.
Water it's flexible, it can go wherever it needs to, it's powerful. Like I can't wait to get into the Splash series for Dwell Church. I'm excited to see what Pastor Eric unpacks about water.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what it was that you said, but he said the word water. And my
Oh,
brain's-
well, I was talking about a buoy, like how gratitude is kind of like a buoy in water. And I love that struck a chord with you because water is something that I think about a lot. I think of myself as water. And one thing that
We're like 70% water, right?
right, we are, yeah. One thing about water is it has the ability to take on the shape of the container that it goes in, right? And an example of that earlier in the last segment, so if you haven't seen the last segment, go back and watch the last segment, okay? In that was, you heard me talking about creative production and direction and saying, I can be whoever I need to be on the team, right? And it's what really makes a unique skill for me. I think water it's everything, right? It's in us, it's around us, it's above us, it's below us. I mean, we cannot survive without it, right? It takes all the different states, right, of a gas, of a liquid, and of a solid. And you heard me talking about going from your present state to your future state, right? So, well, you may be a liquid now, but do you want to be a liquid later? Or do you want to be a gas, or do you want to be a solid? If you want to be a solid, go somewhere cold. Freeze, baby, freeze. Like there's a system. There's a system to create anything that you want to create. And I think just water is a great example of that, because you can have one drop, or you could put 1,000 drops into something and you have a bigger mass.
Right.
It's like a similar way of like you can think about community and adhesion of water and how it just kind of naturally wants to come together. People want to come together deep down, right? It may be very deep down, but deep down, people want to come together. They want to.
We were made for it.
Oh yeah. You mean, we're really not made to be alone all the time. Right? Even if you're someone who likes a high level of solitude, we're still social creatures. You want to be around people every so often, even if that's not often for you, or if you're on the opposite side of the spectrum and you like love being around people and you just get so energized by it and it just brightens your whole day, right? And so like in that, it's like find people who respect your boundaries of like what you need, but the understanding that we are social creatures and you should lean in sometimes.
Absolutely.
You should lean in sometimes.
I feel like I'm like a extroverted introvert. Like I have developed the ability to converse and engage in a room full of a lot of people, but too much interaction drains me.
Yeah.
And then I just want to go and take a nap.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with that, there's a sense of flexibility. You adapt to the situation, the environment that you're in. And I think that's really important. So one thing that we missed in your history was the sound baths. So you talked about having you said master degree in music?
I do, yes.
Okay. What was your inspiration in pursuing that? Just your love of music?
Pursuing my master's in music or getting into
Both.
Sound healing? Well, if we're just diving way back, I actually used to play the viola. Oh, you used to play the viola?
No, I played the violin, but I love the waybacks. That's what, even earlier, he's like, in the last one, he's like, oh, I like to go back. But I'm like, I'm sitting here like, you didn't really go back.
That's what you're here for. You gotta keep me in line.
I don't like, but I think this is a lot like our interview with T. Barlow. When you get on stage with people who are just like big in life, so as like even a host or a co-host, sometimes you just gotta sit here
and go with the flow.
Yeah. Look, we're talking about
like,
the water.
And I'm like, I can't stop.
Yeah.
No, jump in. I won't mind. I'll just say that I won't mind.
I love the waybacks, because I feel like so many people we've met like present day or even just like a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And that you're already like doing your thing, and so it's just like, well, what were you doing before this?
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. So
you played the viola.
Yeah, I used to play the viola, and so I was always someone who kind of grew up in music and things like this. And then,
sing in choir?
I got into singing very, very late, and that's what made me very interesting, actually. And by very late, okay, let me not be super dramatic. I mean like 18, okay?
Okay.
I mean like 18. But when you go to higher levels, like particularly like conservatories and stuff, you'll find that a lot of people have been doing stuff from when they were really young,
two,
right?
yeah.
You may literally find violinists have been doing it since they were like 4, right? It's a real thing. And now as I'm older, I'm kind of like, that was not that late. That's hilarious. But in that, the way I got into opera is actually kind of funny and interesting. So one of my friends who was in choir, I played the viola at the time, so I was in orchestra. And we went to go see Phantom of the Opera and just like had a lot of fun at the movies. And I was just like, this was so fun. And she was like, well, what are you doing like next week? I'm going to volunteer at the Atlanta Opera. And she was like, do you want to come? And she said, we'll get to see the show for free that they're putting on. We didn't know what they were putting on. And I was like, yeah. Right? I'm just very open to like taking on opportunities and possibilities. Like I'm just like, let's go after it.
Yeah.
And in that, I was like, okay, so here I am. Never been in their building anything before, but we're greeters. I'm just greeting people, welcoming them in. Okay, I won the kindness award when I was in 2nd grade. Okay, so I've been about this life. Okay, trying to treat people right. So I'm just welcoming people into the space, a space I don't know nothing about. Come on in, it's gonna be great. I don't do that kind of stuff anymore. As far as like, I need to know what I'm welcoming you into. And in that though, we got to run in at the very end, and it was the final dress rehearsal, and they just happened to be putting on a production of Porgy and Bess. And if you don't know Porgy and Bess is easily the most well-known, well-performed, almost fully black cast opera. And so I still remember we ran in and we were sitting on the third row, and I was just sitting there, and I was thinking to myself, one, this is really cool, and two, is this a thing? This is like a legitimately a thing, right? Because even though I was in classical arts, all this stuff, I did not really have any real connection to opera, and had definitely never seen Black people in that art form, right? Sure. And I was just like, is this a thing? I sound like this when I'm loading the dishwasher. This is something, huh? And that was kind of the beginning for me. I realized like, oh yeah, not only like can I do this, I'm very good at it. And I had went to a state school, the University of West Georgia. When I first, like I just changed everything. I was like, I'm not going for viola. Like that's not my priority anymore. Like I'm gonna go sing. I'm gonna sing. And I went to the University of West Georgia, and I was there for a little bit, and I had already won the concerto competition by the time I was like 19. Oh, wow. You know, so like they had, you know, chosen like I think 3 winners for like the whole music school like type of thing. And I was just like, huh. And so I remember I just went on Google and I typed in best conservatories in America. And Oberlin came up, and something really cool that they do is they audition all around the world. And they were having an audition that was happening a few months down the line in Atlanta. And I was just like, okay, bet. And so I sent in my stuff, and I got granted the audition, and then did the live audition in person. And, you know, kind of the rest is history from there. And so I've always had like a love for music, and a love for music at a high level. And really seeing that you can emote so much, right? Like you can just, like there's the acting side that's there, and there's the words that are there. But like when you start hearing the human voice, I mean, it can just be just so powerful. And so then fast forward, I had gotten out of opera, and I was in human resources and in diversity, equity, inclusion, and all this other stuff. And I kind of happened upon a video on YouTube one night, truly, of crystal singing bowls. And I was just like, oh, this is really cool. And at first I was just like using it to like kind of like relax, like downtime before bed, like stuff like that. And then eventually I got my own set of bowls and started playing it for myself, and was like, this is even more magical. And then sometimes when people would come over, I would like play for them sometimes. And then, you know, a few months back, I said, well, I don't know if people are going to think this is really weird, but I think this is absolutely amazing. Yeah. And it's like, it will really literally reset your vibe and vibration, because it's introducing a new sound wave into the space that resonates almost like nothing you've really experienced before. And in this, I started doing it publicly, and it has just taken off like wildfire. I was concerned that people would be like, this is different and weird. And in fact, people are loving it. They're telling people about it. They're saying, this is my first time. I literally got a text message from someone that said, my brother came to your sound bath, the last one that you had, and he said it was a life-changing experience. Oh, like, wow. Thank you for what you're doing. And honestly, I get stuff like this somewhat regularly, and I don't take it for granted. It's very exciting. And in that, I do it again because I'm very passionate about people, and I'm doing it almost as a true gift and a service to help people reset and rebalance, right? Yeah. To be able to say, what does it feel like to be calm, to be at peace amongst other people, not just by yourself, but amongst other people. So I love it when I get to go do it in organizations and such, where, especially where there may, you know, people work together, and there's people stuff, right? And there may be strife, and there may be difficulties, and people are trying to get stuff done, and that people may be tired. And coming in and reintroducing this after doing, say, a facilitation, and getting to say, this level of calmness that you feel right now, this level of peace that you feel right now, this level of contentment that you feel right now, you can feel that all the time here. If you can feel it right now amongst this group of people, you can feel it all the time. It's about the choices that you're making, the systems that you set up, the processes that you create for the outcomes that you desire. And I'm here to say, like, how do we just jump here, bring it back? Now, how do we actually walk through to get to this point, right? And so with the sound healing, it's just letting people have a moment of respite, letting people have a space where they can be really safe, and a space where they can, go into like a meditation where it's nothing that's there, right? Where they want to just try to say, I just want to calm and quiet everything, or where you are pondering on something specifically, right? I generally will set an affirmation for each one. And I pray before, so it's like whatever comes to me kind of in that moment. But like one, like, I am full of love, right? And then going into the sound bath and letting your mind like say, what does love look like to me, sound like to me, feel like to me? And you're getting to bask in that for a second. Because in life, we can be so on the go. Go, 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 go. Got to get it done, 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 done. Somebody's waiting on this thing.
Life.
I got to do this thing. What does my calendar say?
Yeah.
That's a big one for me. Is somebody waiting on something from me, right? What do I have coming up? Is there something I'm kind of late on that I need to be like jumping back on? Where do I need to be right now, right? Like, we're
It's a lot.
so on the go. Not to mention somebody's always trying to sell you something, right? Like, it's a busy environment that we live in. And what's really beautiful about sound bathing, which is just taking a moment to intentionally be immersed inside of sound, right, is calming that way back down, chilling it way out, and saying, let's reset your vibration.
Yeah.
And then you make decisions based off how you want to feel from that point. I'm not here to control it, right? This is your life. I'm just giving you an opportunity to have like a grounding space in the middle of the water that hopefully you can catch your breath for a second, be enveloped in some real joy and peace, and then say, okay, how do I want to walk this thing out? And it's so nice because people are really feeling it. People are really embracing it. And it's super exciting. And what's funny about it is it was something that was hard to talk about in terms of the rest of the things that I do through my consulting firm, right? I was like, this is a little bit different than your regular DEI practitioner, like type of thing, right? This is a little bit different than a creative director. It's a little different from all of these things, right? And yet it's not, right? I really am an alignment coach, right? And one of the things I didn't say earlier is that I'm also a performance coach, right? To talk about how are you getting the outcome that you want, right? What up? Hit me up, right? And so I over time though have begun to realize they're really all the same thing. They just look differently. It's all about alignment. How are you knowing what it is that you want and then producing what it is that you want? How is it that you're saying one thing, that's the actual outcome that you're able to walk into, right? So like that could be something for an organization with their processes of what it is that they're doing. Maybe they have a rollout for something. Maybe they're trying to get a specific audience, right? Embedded into what it is that they do or into the audience of a specific place, particularly like for creative, for performances and things like that. Bolstering relationships with specific communities, right? So it's like you're saying you want one thing, but what does that look like here, right? And so it's like you're saying you want peace. What does that look like in practicality? And the sound baths are a quick way to like drop you in.
Okay.
Just like, you know what I'm saying? Like just, you almost, it's like, don't even try to fight it. You're loving this vibe.
Embrace it.
Just enjoy it, right? Just enjoy it. And then you can evaluate it after. Just go ahead and enjoy it because you know you enjoy it, right? And like, they're very similar. So even like something with the creative direction is, well, what are we trying to say, right? What are we trying to get across? And then making sure that you put the right colors, the right items, the right people in place to have that vision come to fruition, right? If I'm not too grandiose with it, like you heard me saying, how can we turn our reality into our dreams? I like to create dreams. I like to support people in their dreams. Like it will already be done by the time this airs, but I'm hosting Joy Fest. And it's being the head curator and the person who came up with it, the visionary, is Elagia, and amazing local curator. Oh my gosh, amazing local curator.
Her family is so amazing.
Oh, and so in this, it's giving me such great, because I'm also on the committee.
Okay.
It is giving me such great joy and pleasure to help the vision come to life, right? So when I go into companies, I'm here to help you get the vision that you want to come to life, whether that's you have a team that's burnt out. I do a lot of facilitations on burnout. It's my favorite facilitation, I think, to do. And right now, and in that, you want your team to feel refreshed. You want them to feel energized. You want them to feel connected. Okay, boom. I'm here to help you make that become a reality, right? I want to find out what your dreams are and help that actually come to be so that you're getting to walk inside of your dream, not just have a version of it that only exists in your mind, but how can you express that with other people? And that's the same as any creativity.
Is that what Joy Brings Light is?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I say it's a multidisciplinary diversity, equity, inclusion firm that is founded in action and fueled by joy, right? How do you make whatever it is that you're doing an enjoyable experience? Because it's not just about the outcome, it's actually a little bit more about the process and your systems, right? I think of goals as goal post, right? It's like on a freeway. You got a big goal post, right? Or like the sign that says like, this is exit 1, exit 2, right? Those are your goals. You go through them very fast. Yeah. Like you don't generally live inside of a goal. If I said, I want to make $100,000, as soon as I hit that 100-000, I have hit that $100,000. Once I go over one more, that goal is passed. I still have to live the day after that, and 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 the day after that, right? Where your systems are what you live inside of the bulk of the time, make decisions that take you to where it is that you want to go. So your goals give you direction, right? Your systems give you outcomes. So I'm here to help people rethink what are their actual outcomes, what are their actual goals that they're going for, and how do their systems align with that, right? And so that's what I do with Joy Brings Light in a numerous amount of ways, because DEI is one of the widest spaces that you could think about, because it really does have a hand in everything. Yeah. In everything. You can't think of a business that isn't impacted in some way around your diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Anytime you're dealing with people, it's present.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have about 2 more minutes.
All right.
One of the questions that, and I feel like you probably shared a lot of that, so many nuggets that you dropped here. Real quick, where can you like just pinpoint some things that you're learning this season?
Well, one, I say I drop gems. Okay, just drop gems. What are 1 or 2 things that I'm learning in this season? Ooh, okay, high vulnerability moment. Okay. One of the things I'm learning in this season is for me to be more specific about what it is that I want to see, because I am so blessed with an abundance of opportunities and things to get into, that saying like, does this align with what like you're ultimately hoping to build, right? So that I don't just get too busy and too tired along the way. Another thing that I'm learning in this season is to make more time for rest, make more time for relaxation, whether that's inactive rest or, less active rest where I'm like laying down, something like that, or active rest where I'm saying I am wanting to socialize in very like specific ways, right? Like I want to go out with my friends a little bit more, but what ways am I doing that still feels restful at the end of the experience, so that it's not, oh, I went out around a bunch of people and now I'm tired, now I just need to go take a nap, right? So that like I walk away feeling like really energized from that experience, but just having more rest in my space. And another thing that I'm working on is, what am I putting in my body? and how is that making me feel, right? I'm kind of really big on that right now, hence the water and the seaweed. Y'all got to give it a go. Of like intentionally trying to drink more water. I've been drinking alkaline water lately, and actually I feel like I've been noticing a difference. So I haven't been doing it long enough to just be riding super hard, but I will say it was recommended to me. I've been enjoying the experience. Try it out if you want to. But that's something that's been pretty big about, like, what am I putting in my body and how is that making me feel? And it's important that I know before we get off, I know to just balloon it right back out. It's not just food. It's not just food, okay? It's everything that you take in all day, right? Including the sounds that are happening around you, the conversations that are happening around you, the music that you're putting on, the TV shows that you're watching, right? Like what's coming in, because what comes in will come out.
Absolutely. I feel like, well, I know 50 minutes is not long enough for this interview. We're going to have you come back for next season. And I thank you so much for saying yes to this interview. I had mentioned to you, didn't really say in the interview, but Joy is one of the few people who is new to like our collective, and has really shown up and shined, and I'm just excited that we had this opportunity to sit down. Thank you so much. Can you tell one more time your contact?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Joy Brings Light. You can find my website at joybringslight.com. You can find my email at joybringslight@gmail.com. And remember, when you step into your joy, you step into your light. Shine bright.
Amen. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of Our Humble Podcast. Our guest has been Andrea Joy. Joy Brings Light. It's such a pleasure having you here, and can't wait to have you back.
Thank you.
You guys take care. We'll see you again next time.
See ya.